consciousness is everything. There are degrees of consciousness. There is a part of us that is ancient, that is timeless, that is all-knowing. All of those things we're talking about, consciousness and the ability to access these extraordinary potentials, they are part of what is called human divinity. Our consciousness is holding this energetic template in place. If something is happening in our bodies that we're not happy about, it is malleable, and it can change in a heartbeat when we change the consciousness. Consciousness is everything. Consciousness, we now know, I mean, as a scientist, what I can tell you is talk about cracked open, Kelly. The new James Webb telescope is sending back information that is in complete contradiction to what we've been taught about the universe. We've been taught that we live in a dead, inert, lifeless universe, and that we are the exception as living beings. We're the exception. The James Webb telescope now is sending back information, and physicists, there are peer-reviewed journals out there that are now saying the universe is alive, it is conscious, and it is intelligent. And just as an example, they've got galaxies now that when those galaxies are threatened by a cosmic event, they will develop a ray of energy that comes from the center to propel that galaxy out of the danger, out of the path of danger from whatever the threat is. And once they found it, wow, they said, you know, is this a one-off? And they found that it is not, that this happens again and again. And they've got photographs. You go to NASA websites, you can now see the photographs of these rays, gamma rays, that are coming right out of the center and moving these things out of the way. Consciousness is everything. There are degrees of consciousness. And what we know is that our consciousness does not reside in our bodies, James. And I think this is probably one of the most important things. I mean, intuitively, we all sense this. But I remember I was born and raised in Missouri, and Kansas City, Missouri. I remember when I was a kid, Einstein had just died when I was a kid. And they took his brain to the University of Kansas, and they sliced it in thin sections to see what it is that made him so unique and set him apart from everyone else. And you already know what they found, absolutely nothing, except he had more folds in his brain, which means if you were to pull those folds apart, it means his brain produced more surface area. This is important because we now know that our bodies are the conduit or the antenna to a part of us that does not reside in the physical body. There is a part of us that is ancient, that is timeless, that is all-knowing. It's where our healing begins. It's where our love begins. It's where our forgiveness begins, where our imagination and our creativity and our innovation all begin. And I want to talk more about that. But the idea of consciousness now is changing rapidly in the scientific community because of these things. So what the science is now showing is that we literally are resonant receptors. There's so much, I'm hesitating because I'm not sure how deep we want to go into this, but what's happening is
fascinated.
When I was in school in the 1950s, 1960s, I was taught to think of the human body as like this soft, squishy, mushy, wet, biological stuff, which we are on one level. But now scientists are beginning to look at the human body from the perspective of IT, information technology, which is a very, very different way of thinking. And what they found is that the DNA of every cell literally is what is called a fractal antenna, which means it is receiving information across a broad spectrum, many signals simultaneously, but it's a two-way conversation. We also are broadcasting. And the question is, what are we saying? And who are we saying it to? Well, there's another branch of science. In the year 2012, that validated, we all talk about being connected by a field. And in our genre, in our community, that's common knowledge. We just say, oh yeah, there's a field that connects all things. Not so for science until the year 2012.
Wow. At
the CERN superconducting supercollider in Geneva. They found that there is a field that underlies all of existence. And this is where it gets really, really interesting when we talk about consciousness, because even today, let me just say this. I went to a physics conference recently, and here's a physicist. He says, oh yeah, there's a field out there, and his hand's doing this. It's like out there that connects all things. The field isn't out there. We are literally the field. Every cell, the average human has about 50 trillion cells in the human body. Every one of those 50 trillion cells has about 100 trillion atoms. And here's the mind blower. Those atoms right now, with everyone, you and me, those atoms are constantly emerging from that field and collapsing back into the field in a dance.
Wow.
They emerge from that field to fill in the space of the template that I call the Gregg show or the James show or the Kelly show. Our consciousness is holding this energetic template in place. And so the beauty, wow, James, is if something is happening in our bodies that we're not happy about, it is malleable, and it can change in a heartbeat when we change the consciousness that holds that template in place. Those atoms will emerge and fill that new template. This is how we create miracles. This is how we create miraculous healings, or what some people call spontaneous healings. And it has a lot to do with human potential, because we have been conditioned to believe that we are frail, flawed, powerless victims in a world we have no control over, and that we need something outside of us to become the best version of ourselves. And now with our own science, the best science is telling us is that we literally are a soft technology. We can use those things externally, but we don't need them.
How would you describe the soul?
There's a part of us, and I just said this, a part of us that is timeless. It is ancient, all-knowing. It's the source of our love and our forgiveness. I'm going to use a word that means different things to different people, and then I'll define that word. And I think if people may be surprised at what this word actually means. All of those things we're talking about, consciousness and the ability to access these extraordinary potentials, they are part of what is called human divinity. Now, divinity for many people is associated with religion. And I can see why. I mean, there's schools of divinity, that have been, but the definition, if you look up the definition of divinity, this is really interesting. Divinity is the ability to transcend perceived limitations. And that's it. Now, so let's break this down. The ability to transcend, it means not just survive, but to become more than. Perceived limitations, they may not even be real. They are the limits that we have been programmed or conditioned, or that we have been falsely misled into accepting for ourselves. They may not even be real. So when we can become the best version of ourselves, the full expression of our humanness, that is the expression of divinity, and the soul is expressing through those divine processes. This is where it gets really interesting, and why I wanted to have that first question a little bit longer. How do we access that divinity in this world? In the earth realm, it is through the gift of this magnificent vessel that we were given to walk this earth. It is the antenna on the surface membranes of the cells. It is the antenna of the DNA. It's the antenna of the neurons that are tuned to the places in the field that hold that essence of what we call soul or consciousness and divinity. And there are a lot of nuances going on there. Here's why this is so important for us to know. A lot of people think, okay, well, that's interesting. It has nothing to do with my life today. It has everything to do with life today, because there is a concerted effort. There has been for 200,000 years, from the time that we first emerged onto this planet. There has been a concerted effort to separate us from our divinity. It's always been there. The reason I'm mentioning it now, what has changed? Here's what's changed. And we're all part of this. We're all feeling this. Technology has now advanced to the point where the technology is not just changing the world around us, James, but the technology for the first time is changing the world inside of us, replacing computer chips in the brain, chemicals in the blood, sensors under the skin, wires inside the cerebral cortex of the human brain. And these are not part of our natural evolution. There's a concerted effort to replace our humanness with these machines. When we do that, what we do, if we don't have the antenna of the DNA and the cell membranes, we cannot access our divinity. And so this is a very, very fundamental principle that's playing out. I'm beating around the bush. I'm going to say this. There's an ancient battle for our humanness. It is a fundamental battle between good and evil that has been playing out, and it goes in cycles. And sometimes it is more of an emotional battle. Sometimes it is a psychological battle. It can become a kinetic battle. I want to talk about how we use our divinity to transcend this fundamental battle, because I think it's important for us all in our everyday lives. If you're okay if we go in that direction.
Yes, of course.
Well, here's the thing. The fundamental battle between good and evil. People will say, when I was a kid, again, in the Midwest, that fundamental, people used to joke about it. They used to think it was a metaphor. You had a little red devil on your shoulder, with horns, and a little angel over here. But this battle plays out in ways when we steal human freedom, the freedom to imagine, the freedom to create, the freedom to express our love fearlessly, the freedom to forgive without expectation. Those are freedoms that are expressions of divinity. And when we are prevented from doing those things, that is a form of evil. There are many forms of evil playing out right now. So here's the thing, and this is what I think is important for everyone, from my perspective, to understand. There's going to be a time we'll do one of these programs, and I think this rough time we're in right now is going to be behind us. We're going through a little window of time where these fundamental forces are coming together now. We'll get through this. And I think what's important is to ask ourselves, what have we become in the presence of what life has brought to our doorstep? Because that's the battle of divinity. When the events of the world drive us to become something that we would never want to be in a million years, when we hate, when we express revenge, and we're seeing this on the political spectrum, we're seeing it on the religious spectrum. I have good friends, they're good people. When it comes to these issues, they succumb to these most primal instincts, and they're not proud of it. And they don't understand it. So here's the spiritual battle that's unfolding right now. What do we become in the presence of these things? What do we allow the events of the world to make us into? The events are going to be whatever they're going to be, but on the other side, what have we become? And this is where divinity, I think, is so important, James and Kelly, because it tells us this isn't a battle that you win in a conventional battle where you're fighting against something. We don't want to win, we want to triumph. To triumph means to become more than that battle. And we do that by expressing our divinity in the presence of the fear and the hurt and the anger and the hate, even when it's not supported, with kindness, These are the highest expressions of human divinity. So I think this is happening with everyone right now. We're all faced with this, and with our families, our friends, our communities. You're not going to change necessarily other people, but I think this is our test. It's a test to see what we allow the events of life to make us become. If we succumb to those primal instincts of revenge and hate and fear, or do we somehow transcend those? And that's what this fundamental battle between good and evil is all about. When we look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, what's so interesting, those are the oldest records of the Old Testament ever discovered, the Christian Bible. And they were discovered 1946-47. They were not allowed to be shared with the public until 1991.
That's true. Yeah.
So my question, in the early 90s, I was a member of an organization called BAR, Biblical Archaeology Review. And it was BAR that freed those scrolls for public, so the public could see them. And I said, what is it that could possibly be in these scrolls that would be so dangerous that they've been held for 45 years from the general public? The answer, part of the answer, it's a big question, but part of that answer, and the irony, in Cave 1 in Qumran, in the first vase that they found, in the first scroll that they found, I mean, you can't make this stuff up, it was the first scroll. It is called the War Scroll. It's a war between, and this is the exact translation, between the sons of darkness and the sons of light. Wow. That will play out until the end of this cycle of time. You and I and our community, whether we're aware of it or not, we are involved in this battle between the sons of darkness and the sons of, and sons means men and women. This is the terms that they were using back then. It's good and evil. And so I think it's an opportunity not to be angry and not to judge, but to discern and recognize what it is that we're offered that supports life-affirming choices and what denies life in our bodies, in the world around us, in our imagination, our creativity, all of these things. And all of a sudden, the events that are playing out that look so random, they begin to take on a new meaning, because you see there's a purpose and there is an end. The purpose is to separate us from our divinity. The end is for us to triumph over that separation. And everything that we're seeing playing out is a part of that right now. So I just wanted to say that when you talk about soul and you talk about consciousness, it's through our bodies that we're able to access in this realm those things. And I think one of our deepest missions is to honor and preserve the vessel that holds the gift that allows us to bring our divinity into this world. We need to be healthier now than we've ever been. Yeah. Just because there's so much going on in the world, so much stress. And
kinetic energy.
Yeah, we just need to be the best version of ourselves. So does that make sense if I say it that way?
Totally. Greg, where do you see spirituality going forward because of AI, because of new technology, all of these advancements? How can people stay in their divinity?
Well, this is the thing. Spirituality in its truest form is very different from religion. So spirituality, and you've probably talked about this in other programs, I'll just define this now so that we can tie into this. In its truest form, spirituality is about relationships. It's about our relationship to our own bodies, our relationships to other people, our relationship to the earth, to the cosmos, to God, to the past, to the future. It's all about those relationships. And we are wired, biologically wired, to thrive and to adapt in the presence of everything that is coming at us. We just aren't told that very often. Religions came along later and wrapped the rules and the dogma around those pre-existing spiritual conditions, and people began to feel separate from their own power, from their own divinity by design. That's the purpose of the original purpose of many of the religions. There are good people that practice all of them, But the original purpose was to say that you can't talk to the divine, you can't talk to God. You need to go through an intermediary, and so AI. Now here's what's happening, and I come from a high-tech industry. I was working in the Cold War, in the defense industry during the Cold War, on a project called SDI, Star Wars Defense Initiative. And the only reason I say that is because I had access to some of the most advanced technology, lasers, communication systems, radar systems. Then, I mean, I could only imagine where they are now. I had access to all of those things. And I have to tell you this, as a scientist, I have yet to see any of those technologies built outside of us that does not mimic what we already do in our bodies, except we do it better if we understand what is now being called soft technology. We are soft technology. We're not the hard technology of a computer chip and a wire and a sensor. We're more than that. We're neurons and cell membranes, ion potentials moving across cell walls. And here's the beauty. We're the only form of life that we know that can self-regulate all that at will, when we choose, on demand. No other form of life can do this. This is consciousness. This is the soul speaking through consciousness as it expresses in this earth realm through the gift of what our ancestors called the vessel. 1 Corinthians, if people are biblically inclined, they find this very clearly. The Apostle John wrote 1 Corinthians, "Know you not that you are the vessel, the temple of God." And religion aside, I think he was telling us something very, very important, that there's something so rare and precious about us that we need to know and we need to remember.
Greg, I have a quick question for you, because I just got to ask this. Earlier you talked about the rays, the gamma rays, the galaxies. Do you think that if humans go too far, there's, if you want to call them extraterrestrials, other beings will come and intercede to protect that human form, that human evolution? What do you think?
So I'm going to answer this in a couple of ways.
Okay.
I think that the science shows very clearly, the archaeological evidence, the anthropological evidence, the cultural evidence, and now the physical evidence that's being revealed through disclosure and congressional hearings, all tell us that we have a relationship with a family beyond this world. All right, that's not a surprise to anybody here, and one of the reasons that the disclosure is so difficult right now is because of I don't think anybody cares if there's a flying saucer in Area 51. Nobody cares if there's a couple of gray beings, working on a keypad 7 levels below the surface. But it implies they didn't get here with a Dodge Ram V8 engine, in there. I'm just saying, that's just parked in my driveway is why I'm saying that. So it implies that they have technology that could change our world for the better, and that we've had it for over 70 years, and it has been repressed and it's been hidden. That is where a lot of the problem comes from. So I don't think they would do it overtly yet. I think covertly it's already happened. And this is one of the reasons I mentioned during the Cold War, there were 2 times that humans, through their anger, pushed the button for nuclear war, and 2 times that the technology mysteriously, to this day, they don't know why it didn't work. And one of those was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. I'm sure we have people old enough to remember 1962. The United States believed that we had blockaded those missiles from coming into Cuba. It wasn't until the 90s that our former Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara, had a conversation with Fidel Castro through a translator. And he asked them, he said, if you had those weapons, would you have used them against America? And Castro answered him. And he said, well, it must be a bad translation. Ask him again. And so the translator asked again. McNamara's face turned white. He got up and left the room to compose himself, and he came back. And that was the first time America learned that the blockade didn't work, that Cuba had the nuclear missiles, and that Castro had ordered those missiles to be launched against America. And they failed. So I think, and I don't know this as a scientist. I'm not speaking to you now as a scientist, my personal sense. I think we're supposed to figure this stuff out on our own. I believe we probably would not be allowed to destroy our planet because the ripple effect in space, time, and dimensions would affect so many other forms of life. I don't know that it would be allowed to go that far.
So
and this is why
intervention then.
But I don't know that it would be obvious at first.
Right.
Now, I'm going to go back. In the War Scroll, there are 7 battles that will be fought between the sons of darkness and the sons of light. The 7th battle is won by the sons of light with divine intervention. So the way that is interpreted, part of it is through our own divinity, but part of that is through however you want to couch this, whether it's heavenly beings, whether it's ETs and UFOs or whatever it is, another consciousness will intervene, and that will bring the reason they intervene is because it is the end of this great cycle and the beginning of the next. So
that feels right, Greg. That resonates with me. That is truth, what you just said.
Well, it's interesting when I lead groups into the Holy Land in the past. Obviously, we're not going this year because of the war.
Right.
Those texts talk about, and there is a phenomenon in scientific literature they're called remote viewing. I know many people are familiar with it.
Sure.
Where an individual sits in one place but projects consciousness not just anywhere in this time-space continuum, but into the future and into the past. So this is what the prophets, when the prophet John was looking forward and saw this last great battle between the sons of darkness and the sons of light, the location where that battle unfolds is in a valley near the Syrian border. And there's a hilltop when we go down, and I have to tell you, I cry every time I'm there. I don't just cry, I sob, because it feels so real that this battle is there. And I think we're living in the time in this cycle where so many of our secrets are being revealed. And part of that is our divinity. And I'm going to keep coming back to this. I would say that there's something inside of each of us that is so rare and so ancient and so beautiful and so precious and so powerful that nations have gone to war with nations to distract us from this power. That economic systems have been collapsed to keep us from this power. Diseases have been unleashed. Climate has been engineered. Yes, those things are important. They're happening, but ultimately they become diversions and distractions to keep us from awakening this gift that is truly the answer to, I think, everything that we seek in our lives, James, because it's through our divinity. And I'll clarify this. It's through our divinity that we love fearlessly. And here's what I mean by that. How many of us, when we go to give our love to another being, whether it's in an intimate relationship or a friendship or whatever it is, we love to some degree, but we always hold something back because we're afraid. We're afraid of losing ourselves to something that we don't understand. Divinity, when we accept our divine power, we love without that fear. Forgive. How many of us forgive? We say, yeah, I'll forgive that person, but we expect something, some acknowledgement, or we expect something back from the forgiveness. True forgiveness has no expectation. And it is through our divinity, when we accept the power of divinity, that we're able to live and love and heal. This is where our healing begins. This is where the deepest truth of our imagination, what do we dare allow ourselves to imagine first, and then to bring in, to innovate into physical existence of this world. Most people are afraid to even think about what's possible because they've been conditioned to fear their own power. So the better we know ourselves, the less we fear change. And man, we're in a world of change. The better we know ourselves, the less we fear other people. And this is important because we're being mushed together as a society in ways with cultures and religions in ways that we've never been mushed together before. And it's frightening for some people. But here's the most important part. The better we know ourselves, the less we fear our own power. And when we awaken the power of our divinity, once again, the definition, the ability to transcend perceived limitations, when we allow ourselves to become more than the fear of what we've been told, programmed that we cannot accomplish, that is when we awaken. This is how we transcend evil. Evil is preventing us. Evil wins when it prevents us from expressing our divinity.
That's great.
So you don't have to fight. Just be the best version of yourself, and you've transcended that evil, that fear. You don't have to get out there in the trenches and do this. Just live the best version of yourself on all levels.
That's
on all levels. So, this is unscripted. We didn't know where this is going to go tonight, but I think this is an important conversation because we're all being given reasons to be very afraid. And many of those reasons are coming through other people's perceptions that we trust, including governments, including healthcare practitioners, including well-meaning friends and family. I think everyone means well for the most part, but they're operating on a limited program. And when we look at those events, when we feel that fear, I think we owe it to ourselves to go into our hearts and say, what is it? What is it about this situation that threatens my perception of myself? What is it that I fear? And that opens the door to a lot of deep dialogue with the soul. That's what you guys teach about. So I'm just realizing I'm doing a lot of talking here, and I wanted to share those ideas, but I don't want to talk through the whole conversation.
Kelly, I have a question. Greg, why do you think souls come back to Earth?
I think not all of them do. I think there are levels of coming back to Earth.
What does that mean?
If you believe the ancient texts, we are all products of deception. We've been deceived into what we believe heaven is, what we believe our potential is, and what our role in this world is. And if we buy into that perception, that deception, I think we probably come back a lot of times. I think Earth is a school. I think we do learn here. One of the things I don't necessarily agree with, there's a segment of the ancient traditions, the Gnostic traditions. They're called the Cathars. I don't know if you guys have talked about that in the programs or not. And the Cathars detested physical existence, and they spent all their time trying to renounce our physicality and the physical world. I personally, this is my personal belief, and from so many of the texts that I've read and from my own experience, I think we're here to have this experience, a sensual experience that we can only have in this three-dimensional body that mysteriously appeared on Earth 200,000 years ago. We're not the product of Darwin's idea of evolution. The science breaks down. We really don't know. We showed up 200,000 years ago with everything that we've got right now, all ready to go, fully intact, fully enabled. We did not develop it slowly, gradually over a long period of time. What that says to me is that we are intended to use these faculties, whether we're talking about psychic abilities and ESP or the ability to heal our bodies on demand, to create strong immune systems on demand, to create resilience to change on demand, to awaken super memory, super learning, super consciousness on demand. All of these things we have the ability to do. And I think by coming back, we awaken those perceptions, and we grow as a soul, and we're contributing to something greater through an experience that we can only have in this three-dimensional world. So I think it's important to appreciate and to recognize the opportunities, but to also know that we're okay if we have nothing. And when it all goes away, we're still okay, because we're not what we've been told. We're so much more than we've been led to believe. And this is the power of awakening our divinity, I think. And I think it's true to say, everyone I know, I'm just going to say this, I don't know 8 billion people, obviously. Everyone I know, without exception, I did this on a plane the other night. I made a list. Everyone I know is being pushed to the very edge of who they believe they are.
Definitely.
What they have been taught to accept about themselves. They're being pushed right to that edge. I know a few of them have been pushed right over the edge. And they're struggling right now because they don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
They don't know that there's something inside of them that is so rare, beautiful, and precious that nations will stop at nothing to distract them from that power. And that it's been happening for 200,000 years, since the day we emerged on this planet. And when they begin to understand that there's something more to them than they've been led to believe, it doesn't change what happens. It changes how they feel about what happens.
They wake up a little bit.
They wake up, and it empowers them to begin a journey. And for some people, it's a fast journey. For some people, it's a slow journey. For some people, it's an easy journey because they've been blessed to be raised in a family and supported with these ideas. And for a lot of people, what we're talking about now, I'll be the first to acknowledge, it's a very different way of thinking. My Midwestern upbringing did not prepare me for anything. I mean, people didn't talk about this kind of stuff. Let me tell you something about my mom. When my father left, she wanted us to have some kind of a spiritual education. And my father detested church, so we never went to church. When he left, she took us to a church that she chose randomly, apparently. And that was the beginning of our spiritual education. 2004, I had a book that came out through Hay House, and they toured me through Kansas City, Missouri, where I was born. And my younger brother met me, and I said, let's go back to the old neighborhood. And everything looks different, when you're growing up. So I said, let's go look at the church where we used to go. Well, big letters, this church always said, the first Christian church. And I remember that's emblazoned in my memory. I never looked at the small print underneath. The first Christian church of the Essenes. And my mom had set me on a path, and I don't know that it was conscious because I never got to ask her, but of exploring the Essenes, who we now know were the scribes of the Dead Sea Scrolls. We don't know that they authored them per se. They definitely were the scribes that put them onto those parchments. We don't know if they originated with the Essenes or if they brought them from somewhere else. So it's interesting, Mom set me on a path. And I looked at my brother and I said, damn, look at that. I mean, she knew what she was doing. First Christian church of the Essenes. All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.